Hello guys, so today we are going to be talking about structs and enums in Solidity, okay? So with that being said, let's get straight right into it. So we are going to be starting with the struct data type, okay? Struct are literally used for keeping records. Let's say, for example, you want to keep records of a book, like you want to keep the names of the author, you want to keep the ID, you want to keep the title of the book and so on. I think the struct data type is what you literally have to use when you're dealing with Solidity, okay? So with that being said, let's try to get straight right into it. So let's assume, let's say we have a contract, okay? Let's say we have a contract, and this will give the name of the contract as test, all right? And we don't have a constructor, okay? So in this particular code, what we are going to do is to define the struct, you must always learn to use the struct keyword, okay? So if you use struct, it needs to have a name, all right? You need to name your struct. So let's say we can name our struct as book, okay? Since we want to keep records of that same book, all right? So within the struct, the members of the elements of the struct, what you have to do is, let's say we have a string for the title. Okay, let's name it as title. All right. You can name it as title. It's very important. This is the format by which you have to follow. We have a string. It's the author. All right. And we equally have uint to keep, let's say, the book ID. Okay. Book ID. As such, this is how your struct has already been created, okay? The struct data type, which is literally going to be used to keep records of a particular item. It could be whatsoever you choose. Let's say in this case, we're using a book for you to see how it actually works. All right. So after declaring the struct, you can literally be able to like instantiate this struct, okay? Like for example, if you want to say, if you want to create, if you want to store information on different books, for example, okay, let's say we have a book called Atomic Habits, for example, and then we want to store different elements of that book. So to create a new instance of it, we need to start by saying book. Okay, we can give it a little book as such, and we've created a little instance of the struct. Okay, so we can create a function. Okay, we can say function. We can give the name of the function, let's say set book. All right, and we can make it public. I was talking about this variable scopes in my last video, so if you didn't watch how you can be able to use the public keywords, the public external, internal, and external keywords, literally, I think you can watch my previous video for you to understand how to use this variable scope. It's very important while working in Solidity, okay? So we can use the public keyword here, and literally what are we going to be returning? We are not going to return anything. This it's a set book. Literally, we are going to be setting the book, the items which you want to use for that particular book. Okay, so since we are trying to set the book, whenever this function is called, it should be able to set this specific parameters. We are just going to hard code it for this video, okay? But you can always use it as parameters when you're trying to work autonomously, okay? So if we have a book, for example, so we are going to use this book which we predefined here, okay? So since we're using the book, we can say book is going to be since of type book. We are now going to say book with a capital B. We open braces, and this is how we're going to like name it. For example, we can say the title of our book, we can call it, for example, Atomic Habits. Let's say Atomic Habits. It has to follow the order, okay? We can find the author of the book. Let's just say AP, A-ish, for example. This is a string. You need to like make sure we're following this specific pattern. You can say A-ish. And we need to actually give the book ID. Since it's the first book, we can give it an ID as, let's say, 1, for example, right? And we need to always end with a semicolon per se. So when this function is called, it's literally going to set this particular struct. It's going to give it an ID of Atomic Habit. It's equally going to give it an author of AH, and it's going to give it an ID of 1, okay? This is hard-coded, okay? Whenever this function is called, this is what's going to happen. But we can transform this function to run autonomously, okay? So whenever the function is called, it automatically updates a new book into the struct, okay? So, but as such, this is literally just for basic understanding for you to understand, right? So we can have another function called function. Let's say function, for example. We can name it as get book ID. You can name it as such, and you can set it to be public. Yes, since we need it, you can set it to be public, view, and let's make it return a unit. Returns unit, okay? So with this, to be able to access, let's say, a specific book, for example, we can now just simply say return, use the return statement. Since we already declared book, and within this book, we already have that he has a title, he has an ID, okay, and equally has an author, right? So we can be able to access each and every element within the struct of this book, okay? So to access that particular element, let's say we want to access the book ID, we need to say book, okay? To access that particular element, we need to be able to say book dot book ID. It's very important. The book dot book ID, right? By doing this, what this function is going to return 1, since let's say we set the book ID from the struct to be 1, okay? It's very important for you to note this, all right? So whenever this function is called, it's going to return the value of 1, because we are trying to get this book ID which we stored in this book instance, okay? We hard-coded this, all right? It's very important, but there's a possibility by which you can make this not to be hard-coded, right? But just for the sake of understanding, you need to understand the struct. This is how it's being declared. You must always use the struct keyword, and we must actually give it a data type. In this case, we name it as book, okay? Within the book, literally we have the 3 different elements within this struct, okay? We have the title, the author, and the book ID. You need to always learn to create an instance of that book so that we can always be able to use it. Once we created the instance of the book, literally we had to like set this particular titles, author, and the ID which we actually implemented, okay? So within this other function, we are literally calling a function that returns the book ID which we already stored, right? So that's literally how you can be able to use struct anytime you're required to use it in Solidity, okay? On the other hand, enums are actually used to like set specific variables to have just predefined variables, okay? So let's see how this works with code, for example. All right, so let's say we have another contract, okay? Let's say we have a contract, and let's say we can call this let's say test 2. All right, so within this test 2, let's say we have an enum. So if you want to create an enum, for example, this is how you actually set it. You say enum, all right? You can give it you can give it whatever name you want to give it. Let's say we call this fresh juice size, okay? Let's say fresh juice size, okay? This I want to call it, and we need to set some predefined terms. Let's say the first one, we're calling it small. Next, we call it medium. I'm going to explain what this literally means in a bit, okay? Next one, we call it medium, and the next we call it large, okay? Now, with this being said, we're literally setting that fresh juice, whatever is being given a data type as fresh juice, whatever variable is given a data type as fresh juice, which we are going to be doing shortly now, can only have 3 possible values, okay? That's why we're restricting the values of that variable, all right? So when you use this, you minimize the risk of errors in your code, okay? Literally, whatever variable we actually give it the data type of fresh juice, it's always going to have either small, medium, or large as their values. And mind you, these are literally numbers, okay? Like whatever naming you give, literally, it's going to always start from 0, 1, and 2, all right? So whatever variable you use, if you set it to a value of small, it's always the value is going to be 0, and if you give it the value of medium, the value is going to be 1. Likewise, large is always going to be 2, all right? So if we increase it to something else here, literally is going to go to 3, okay? So that's how it kind of works. So let's say fresh juice, we're going to give it a variable. So since we set the data type, all right, now we're trying to initialize a certain variable. Let's say choice. Let's say choice, for example, and we want to set a constant, okay? Let's say fresh juice constant, we are setting a constant, let's say default choice. We're making it fixed, okay? This is how you set fixed variables in Solidity. In Enum, using Enums rather. Let's say default choice. We set the default choice to be, let's say fresh juice dot small, or let's say fresh juice dot large rather. We can set it to whatever. We can say fresh juice dot let's give it a value of medium, by the way. Let's give it a value of medium, okay? So by so doing, we're making the default choice variable to always have a value of medium, okay? We haven't yet set choice, okay? Choice is now probably it's a scope, it's a state variable, and literally it has just been initialized. It has not yet been instantiated, okay? So now we are going to create a function where this can be initialized, okay? So we can say function, we can say set large, we can call it a set large, and we can name it as public. Since it's not going to be returning anything, we can just allow it as such, and we can just say choice, okay? Choice is equals to fresh juice dot large, right? I think it's quite obvious here. So we are setting this variable choice, okay? It's an enum, okay? Where we are setting it to large, okay? Mind you, this value here is going to be 2 because an enum literally is a set of numbers, okay? In as much as, let's say we give it letters, we give it words, okay? We name words in the enum, but literally all of them are numbers. As I said, small represents 0, medium represents 1, and large represents 2, okay? So giving it the value of large here by saying fresh juice dot large, what we are simply trying to do here is we are trying to set the choice variable to be equal to 2, right? So with this being said, whenever this function is called, choice is always going to be set to 2, okay? It's always going to return the value of 2. It's not going to return large as a string, but it's literally going to return a unit value that's an integer value of 2, okay? It's very critical to note this. Okay, let's say we actually give another function. We write another function and we get we name it as get choice. All right, and we can equally set this to public. Since we are going to be interacting with the state variable, we need to name it as views, and returns. We need to return that data type, that's fresh juice. It's going to be of type fresh juice size, as we named it before. Since it's an enum, okay, so if you're learning how to use enum, this is how you actually use it properly, right? And since we're trying to like get the value of choice, we can just simply say return choice. It's just as simple as this, okay? Since choice, literally, this function is always going to be called first, then this other function will be called later on, right? So literally you need to call the set function to set the choice variable to large, then you can call the get choice function to be able to get the choice variable which we set here, and you know literally the value is always going to be 2, okay? It's very important. We can literally we can write another function I'll call like get default. We can get default choice, okay? It's very important. We can be able to use this, and can set it to public, and set it to pure, returns same as what we did before. We can set it to fresh juice size, okay? And while we are doing this, we can return default choice, okay? We're going to cover this in our parentheses, and we are going to like do a little casting here to be of type units, okay? Default choice, let me see, we have okay, this gives an error, okay, because we named it as a constant, all right? Since I named it as a constant, it can't be returned as such, okay? So let's take this out, and there we go. All right, So I can't do a casting since the value is going to be automatically used like that, right? So that's how you're going to use it. So if you've been trying to learn how to use enums, this is literally how you use enums. Okay, the use of enums is literally used for setting a particular variable to always have a a restricted value, okay? Because whatever is given a data type of first juice size, for example, choice can always have tv values, either small, medium, or large. That's all what it's always going to have. Because if we say let's say we cancel this, for example, and we say, if I cancel this and we say first choice is equal to 3, and I do this, I'm always going to have an error here, okay? You must always have one of these values here, okay? And that's the use of enums, okay? So one of the benefits of this is it helps you minimize errors while you're coding. It helps you lower the weak stuff. Let's say if you want to type in a particular number and you want to limit your chances of errors, it's always good for you to use enums. While on the other hand, as you saw in the first contract, structs are literally used to keep records of items. Let's say you have multiple books and you want to keep record of, let's say, their titles, the authors of this book, and their IDs. Struct is always going to help you do that, right? So with that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.